Look at Trudeau's Emergency Economic Measures Order. It covers foreign banks and insurance companies operating in Canada. So mainly American banks in terms of seizing their assets. If you are a U.S. bank doing business in Canada, well, Wells Fargo, Citibank, whatever, even credit card companies are a kind of bank. You've always known that Canada was a liberal democracy with the rule of law, including very strong free trade agreements going back and forth between our two countries. You know that the free flow of funds and financial services and money and banks and stock markets between Vancouver and San Francisco, between Winnipeg and Chicago, between Toronto and New York, Halifax and Boston, centuries of commerce, trust. We're really the same when it comes to trusting each other in banks. That is gone now. Now we got a little mini Fidel, a Hugo Chavez-style political expropriation of opponents' bank accounts. And the reason I mention that is because it's one thing for Canadian banks to have to do it. But you saw the order. It specifically says foreign banks. Should U.S. banks comply with Trudeau's suspension of civil liberties? Here's a list of foreign banks in Canada. There are dozens of them. Like I say, they're specifically covered in Trudeau's expropriation order. If you were the CEO, if you were the general counsel, if you're the vice president in charge of privacy or legal compliance or political affairs, or even just keeping your customers happy, would you go along with Trudeau? Are you more afraid of Trudeau? Or, and I'm not going to say your own customers, how about the U.S. Congress? And here's why I say that, because opinion polls suggest that it is quite likely that the U.S. Congress will turn Republican this November. I mean, the polls are incredible. You saw the recent victory of the Republicans in Virginia. I think it's going to be a blowout. And what that will do is it will change which party runs the House Banking Committee, a very powerful committee. What kind of investigations, subpoenas, hearings will a pro-trucker, anti-Trudeau, anti-cancel culture Republican House Banking Committee, what kind of investigations will they do to a U.S. bank that willingly serves up their U.S. citizens for Trudeau's delectation? Or for that matter, if those U.S. banks serve up their Canadian customers to Trudeau. That's just as offensive for an American bank to do, don't you think? If you were in charge of compliance and risk management at an American bank, what would you do? If this were Venezuela, you would probably close up shop. Venezuela is a wonderful country, I hear, but it's not that large, and really the atrocious things you're required to do business there, you would just have to close up, and it would be too bad. You know, China's that way. There's a lot of tech companies, for example, Facebook, that would love to do business in China, but just can't, because the requirements of China would be to give every single piece of data about every single customer to the communist government. And although you know Mark Zuckerberg would want to do that, it would just be illegal and it would devastate the trust his company has. Mark Zuckerberg forgoes business in China for Facebook. Do you think that American banks would shut down in Canada if they were forced to do Trudeau's work? I don't know. I hope not. Canada's a huge market. It's as big as California. But if Trudeau is forcing U.S. banks or Canadian banks that are also regulated in the U.S., if Trudeau is forcing them to break the law, maybe those American banks just shut down and say we cannot comply because it puts us at legal jeopardy in America. What do? Do you comply? Do you just try and rag the puck till this is over? We know for a fact that a number of American congressmen and senators were supportive of the truckers. We know that. They tweeted about it. I'll bet some of those American congressmen or their staff or families or friends made donations. So if you're a U.S. bank that's covered in this law, do you turn your U.S. congressman over to Trudeau, actually seize their property? Whew! Bold move if you do that. You know, here's a timely reminder about Chrystia Freeland, the World Economic Forum executive who serves as Trudeau's finance minister? You know, I'm not making fun because not everyone is wealthy, but at age 45, when she returned to Canada from her long stay in the United States, at age 45, when she comes back to Canada to run for Parliament, she needed her parents to co-sign her mortgage. Her parents had to lend her money or guarantee her mortgage. And she is going to tell banks how to operate and what to do. Now, I'm not making fun of someone who needs parents to buy them a house at 45. I'm making fun of such a person claiming to be an authority on finances and banking and how the world works. She has the reverse Midas touch. Everything she handles turned pear-shaped. You know, she ran a company for Reuters, ran it into the ground, a digital company. She burnt through tens of millions of dollars. She is a disaster. And I think she could destroy trust in Canada's banks. Trudeau also orders insurance companies to cancel insurance on any truck he says is a mean, honking kind of truck. Seriously, though, how are insurance companies to know the difference between a good truck and a bad truck? A truck that Trudeau hates, a good horn honk, and a bad horn honk? As with Trudeau's seizure of bank accounts, his insurance edict applies to a huge number of U.S. insurance companies. Here is a massive list of U.S. insurers that operate in Canada. Are you actually going to cancel? Let's say you're a CEO or a risk manager at a U.S. insurance company. Are you actually going to cancel insurance on a customer because a politician says so? Is that legal under U.S. law to rip up a contract because some politician told you to? So let's say you're a U.S. insurance company insuring a U.S. citizen driving a U.S. truck between Detroit and Windsor. I mean, going back and forth. There's a lot of those guys, right? And let's say he honks his horn or says, F Trudeau. You're going to cancel his insurance because he exercised what in America they call the First Amendment, speaking his mind. Because some banana republic politician told you to? That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.